I caught my wife cheating on me with my brother on my birthday, so I decided to leave them forever and reveal my true identity when I canceled the diamond ring for my wife. Then what I did to her and my brother, you are not going to believe it, but before we continue, please subscribe to the channel. My name is David Carter, and yes, I am a billionaire. But here's the truth, I never lived like one. I always believed in living a simple and ordinary life. No flashy cars, no giant mansions, no showing off. Just a man who wanted love more than money. But the woman I loved the most, my wife, she never saw it that way. To her, I was a failure, a poor man with nothing to give. Still, I wanted to make her happy. On my birthday, I secretly ordered one of the most expensive diamond rings, a gift to remind her how much she meant to me. I thought it would be the beginning of something beautiful. But that night, before the celebration even started, I walked into my brother's room and my entire world collapsed in front of me. My wife, the woman I trusted with my soul, was cheating on me. And not with a stranger, but with my own brother. My name is David, and today I will tell you how that one night of betrayal destroyed everything I believed in, but also forced me to rise and reveal my true self to the world. When I closed the door behind me that night, the sound was louder than thunder in my ears. My chest tightened, my breath caught, and for a moment I thought I was dying. I had just witnessed the kind of betrayal you never truly come back from. My wife, the woman I had loved more than my own life, was lying in the arms of my own brother on my birthday. The candles on the cake downstairs were still burning. The smell of food, of celebration, of family was filling the house. Everyone thought this was supposed to be the happiest night of my year. But in just a few seconds, I lost my wife, my brother, and the very meaning of family. I did not scream. I did not yell. I did not fight. Do you know why? Because sometimes silence is louder than all the shouting in the world. I walked away quietly. Step by step, like a man walking away from his own grave. Inside my head, my heart was screaming. Thousand memories flashed before my eyes. The first time I saw her smile. The nights we stayed awake dreaming about our future. The times I defended her when people said she was not right for me. I had fought the world for her. And now, she had chosen to destroy me with the one person I trusted the most. I sat in my car that night, staring at the steering wheel, shaking. The diamond ring receipt was in my pocket. I had spent weeks designing it, making sure it was perfect. A flawless stone, rare, precious, just like I thought she was. But now, that diamond was worthless. She did not deserve it, I called the jeweler. Immediately. My voice was cold and steady, like I was no longer human. Cancel the order. I said, "Sir, the ring is ready for delivery tomorrow." The man replied, I said, "Cancel it. She will never see it." For the first time in years, I felt something inside me changing. A part of me was dying. The naive, ordinary man who thought love was enough was gone. And another part, the part one had buried for years, was coming back to life, because here is the truth. My wife always thought I was poor, a failure, just an ordinary man trying to survive. She used to look at me with disappointment when I did not buy expensive gifts or show off like other men. What she never knew was that behind my simple life, behind the quiet car and the rented house, I was hiding something much bigger. I'm not poor. I'm not a loser. I am a billionaire. I chose to live like an ordinary man because I wanted to find real love, not someone who wanted me for my money. I wanted a wife who would love me whether I lived in a palace or a one-bedroom apartment. But I was wrong. So very wrong. That night, as I drove away from the house, I did not look back. My phone kept buzzing. Calls from my wife, messages from my brother. But I ignored them. Each ring felt like another nail in the coffin of the man I used to be. I parked near the ocean, rolled down the window, and let the cold air hit my face. My reflection in the rear-view mirror looked like a stranger. My eyes were red, my jaw tight. But there was something else too. Determination, I whispered to myself. They think they broke me, but they just woke me up. The night was long, I could not sleep. I thought about every lie, every fake smile, every moment my wife told me she loved me while she was secretly betraying me. The pain was unbearable, but beneath the pain was fire. A fire I had not felt in years. I remembered the little things. The time she asked me why I never took her shopping like other husbands. The way she rolled her eyes when I brought her flowers instead of jewelry. The disappointment in her face when I said I could not afford something expensive. All those moments I thought were small. Now they were all pieces of the bigger truth. She had never loved me. She loved the idea of someone else. Someone richer? Someone flashier? And my brother? My own flesh and blood? The man I grew up with, the man I shared my childhood with. He was supposed to protect me, not stab me in the back. I had trusted him more than anyone, and he had chosen to betray me in the worst way possible. By sunrise, my decision was clear. I was done hiding. I was done living like a ghost in my own life. It was time to show the world who I really was, but before I revealed myself, before I stood tall as the man I truly am, I promised myself one thing. I would never forgive them. Not her, not my brother. They had taken my love and crushed it. And for that, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. As the sun rose over the water, I felt strangely calm. The storm inside me had passed, and what was left was clarity. I knew what I had to do. I had to walk away completely. Not just from her, not just from my brother, but from the life I had built around lies and false hope. I had to burn the old me and rise again. So I did. I started the car, drove straight to my private office in the city, and opened the locked drawer I had not touched in years. Inside was the key to my real life. Bank statements, ownership papers, and documents that tied me to an empire my wife never knew about. An empire I had built long before she came into my life. I sat there for hours staring at the documents. On one hand, I felt powerful. On the other, I felt broken. Because all this wealth, all this success, meant nothing when the one person you gave your heart to chose to throw it away. But maybe that was the point. Maybe I had to lose her to remember who I really was. That night was the end of one life and the beginning of another. And as I closed the office drawer, I knew this was only the start of my story. I could feel the weight of a different life settling on my shoulders again. The life I had walked away from when I chose love over power. The life I now needed to wear like armor. I stood and looked out at the city. The streets were waking. Headlights slid along the river. Office towers blinked alive one floor at a time. I had been hiding in the shadows for years. That morning I stepped forward. I reached for the old phone I kept locked in the safe. Not the simple phone my wife knew. The other one? The one that held the numbers that could move markets and open doors no one else could see? I turned it on. It hummed back like a loyal machine that had only been sleeping. Calls went out. Quiet, precise, I told Stone, my head of security, to bring the car to the private entrance. I told Avery, my chief of staff, to clear the top floor and activate the old protocols. I told the legal team to assemble before noon. I did not explain. I did not need to. They knew my voice. They knew what it meant when I called at dawn. I moved through the building, and every step felt like I was stepping back into my own skin. The guards nodded with the kind of respect that never existed in my other life. The elevator opened to a private lobby lined with dark wood and quiet art. I had avoided this floor for years. I had come here only when I needed to sign something essential. I stayed away so I could believe my simple life was real. That belief was gone. Avery met me at the office doors with a tablet pressed to her chest. Her eyes flicked to the cut on my lip I had not noticed. She asked if I was ready to begin. I said yes. That was all. Inside, the air smelled like leather and clean steel. My desk waited in the window, the glass beyond it throwing the sunrise into the room. A suit hung in the closet, dark and sharp. I took off my plain jacket and folded it once. I dressed like the man I used to be. The cloth fit the way a memory fits, without effort. With iron. There are moments in a life when you can feel a hinge turning. This was one. The simple husband was gone. The hidden owner had returned. I sat and began to work. First the jeweler. I confirmed the cancellation, instructed them to send the stone back to the exchange, and told accounting to redirect the funds to a scholarship program that carried my mother's name. The message was clear in my own mind. Beauty would not be wasted on betrayal. It would be planted where it might heal something true. Next, the shell companies. I had spread ownership so wide that even the boldest analysts had given up trying to map it. That was by design. Now I ordered the slow draw of assets back into the parent, silent transfers, paperwork that would look like routine consolidation, 1,000 threads weaving into one rope. Them bored. Half of them had never met me in person. They knew the name. They knew the legend built around a quiet figure who never stood in front of a camera. They did not know the face. I set a meeting. For the following evening, I asked for privacy. They understood that meant no phones and no leaks. I should have felt triumph. What I felt was cleaner, resolve. The pain from the night before had cooled into a steady flame. It was not rage now. It was purpose. While reports loaded and signatures crawled across screens, the flashbacks came, not the happy kind. The ones that explain a man. I thought of my father hunched over a kitchen table with bills spread like a storm. He taught me the one lesson that had built everything. Power is quiet when it is real. He said that with tired eyes and a steady voice. He did not use fancy words. He showed me how to stack little wins until they became walls no one could kick down. When he died, I promised I would build something that would outlast every insult and every season. I thought of the first deal I ever made, an abandoned lot that everyone said was cursed. I cleaned it, fenced it, leased it to a small food company that no bank would touch. They paid on time, they expanded. I bought the block around them and turned it into a campus. That was the day I learned that most curses are just excuses with dust on them. I thought of the day I met my wife. A coffee shop with a crook sign and a light that flickered. She laughed at my simple watch and the way I counted change. I took it as charm then. I see it as a warning now. She said she loved simple things. She loved stories about simple things. She did not love living them. I should have listened to the tremor in my chest. I did not. I wanted to believe. I remembered the first time my brother asked about my work. He used to say he worried I would never get ahead. I laughed it off. I told him the world was big and I was patient. He thought patience meant weakness. He was wrong. Patience is the heaviest weapon in the room. He never learned that. Avery returned with files and coffee. She set them down and asked if I needed anything else. I said I needed clarity, and she smiled the way loyal people smile when they understand without digging. She left me with the city, and my thoughts. By noon the office felt like a command post. Stone reported that the house where I had lived was quiet. My wife had tried to call me again and again. My brother had tried once and then stopped. The silence from him felt familiar. He only called when he wanted something. He had taken what he wanted already. I told Stone to send a team to secure my personal items from the house. Only clothes, personal papers, select photos, nothing else. He asked if I wanted to leave a note. I said no. Some doors close without a sound. That is the cleanest way. In the afternoon, I met with the legal team. We reviewed prenups, trusts, and contingencies I had not needed until now. I had not hidden my wealth to play games. I had hidden it to protect what mattered. That protection now turned into a shield. There would be no path for anyone to drain what I had built. There would be a fair exit and a hard line. I signed where I needed to sign. The pen moved, and with it my old life moved further away. When the room cleared, I stood again and looked at the skyline. I thought of how quickly a man can lose the things he loves when those things were never real. It hurts in a specific way, like waking from a dream where the sun felt warm and finding only cold glass. You stand there and you tell yourself to breathe, so I breathed. And with each breath, I felt the ground come back under my feet. I went down to the garage and let the driver take me to the hangar. The jet was waiting with the stairs lowered and the cabin lights soft. We lifted into a blue sky that looked endless. On board, I opened a folder with the quarterly numbers. The empire had grown even while I pretended to be small. Good people had kept the engine running. That humbled me more than the numbers. Loyalty is rare. When you find it, you do not waste it. We landed in a coastal city where one of my oldest holdings sat on a cliff above the water, a private compound. An office a residence I had not used since I started the experiment of living small. The gates opened and closed. The quiet there felt different. It felt like a clean page. I walked the grounds until the sun fell. I thought of the night before, the door, the faces, the shock. I thought of the ring and the cold conversation with the jeweler. I thought of how quickly I had believed a story I wanted to be true. Then I thought of the next story, the one I would write myself. I slept for a few hours. When I woke, I worked again. Calls to the partners in Europe. Calls to the fund in Dubai. A message to the hospital foundation that had been running under an alias I used when I gave without credit. We planned an expansion for the neonatal wing. Life goes on even when your own feels cracked. The best way to remember that is to add something good to the world every time. You take a hard step forward. At noon, the board gathered in the glass room on the top floor. No phones, no assistants. Just the people who thought they ran my company when I disappeared into my little house and my little car. I walked in and watched their eyes measure and recalculate. Some had respect, some had fear. A few had masks. They were still adjusting. I told them the truth. Not with raised voice, with simple words. I said that I had stepped away to test foundations. I said the test was over. I said we would proceed with a vision that had dust on it but not rust. We would buy back 3 companies that should never have been sold. We would close 2 divisions that only looked big on paper. We would build a lab in the Midwest that would carry my father's name. We would create a program to protect employees from the kind of medical debt that had broken our family once. I watched their faces as each plan landed. The ones who cared leaned forward. The ones who only wanted their own slice leaned back. When the meeting ended, the rumors would have started in any other company. Not here. The room had been sealed for a reason. They left in silence. Avery stayed. She asked if I wanted a public reveal. I said not yet. We will let the work speak first. Then the name. That evening I walked alone along the cliff path. The waves hit the rocks with the kind of force that makes men honest with themselves. I went over every scene with my wife again, not to punish myself, to learn. I saw the moments I had ignored, the jokes that cut a little too deep. The way she glanced at my brother when he bragged. The way she changed when I said we should save for a house instead of flying to resorts. Each one had been a small flag. I had folded those flags neatly, stacked them in the dark, and pretended the closet did not exist. I promised myself I would never ignore that kind of signal again. In business, I had perfect discipline. In love, I had wished away the truth. That would not happen again. Over the next days, the transformation moved from the inside to the outside. I moved back into the rhythm of leadership. Early mornings, precise decisions. Long hours that did not feel heavy because they carried meaning. The press began to sense a shift in the markets we touched. Prices moved in patterns they had not seen in years. Analysts wrote notes with careful language. The name they whispered was mine. I kept my personal world clean and small. I sent the papers for separation through counsel. I did not respond to. Messages from my wife. I did not respond to my brother. My silence was not cruelty. It was a boundary made of stone. Some conversations are not worthy of breath. On the 5th day, I visited the neighborhood where I grew up. No convoy. No noise. Just me and one driver. The corner store still leaned to one side. The old field where we played ball had a new fence. I stood there and felt the boy I had been watching the man I had become. He had wanted a family that felt safe. He had wanted a love that did not require performance. He had wanted to build something so strong it could hold the weight of sorrow. I told that boy he had done those things. I told him that sometimes you have to lose a dream to save your own name. Back at the compound, I met with Morgan, the attorney who had kept my quiet life safe. We built a plan for the public return. Not a splashy event with lights, a sequence, a new product launch. A merger that would make sense only when you saw the whole map. A foundation announcement that would reveal the name behind years of anonymous. Giving, the world would not be able to deny the pattern. The line would point to me without a single loud word. At night, the pain still knocked. I let it in. I let it sit. I did not drown it with distractions. I learned its shape. It felt like a bruise that reminded me I had skin. It kept me human while I put steel back into my spine. I started training again. Real training, dawn runs on the cliff path. Heavy pulls in a quiet gym, cold water that turned muscles into stone. The body remembers courage when you ask it to carry weight. One morning as the sun came up, Stone told me my brother had tried to reach Avery at the office. He had left a message that sounded friendly and then clumsy. He wanted to meet. He wanted to talk man to man. He wanted to clear the air. I told Stone to ignore it. Air does not clear when poison lives in it. You leave the room. You do not stay and breathe deep. Another day, my wife sent a box through a courier. Inside were photos from trips we had taken. The coast, the cabin, the street fair where she had laughed under paper lights. On top was a note written in the careful letters she used when she wanted to look gentle. I did not read it. I placed the photos in a drawer marked with the year. They are part of my history. They are not my future. While the personal storms tried to find me, the business skies opened. We closed the first acquisition that had been waiting in the shadows for too long. A supplier in trouble, a team with heart and no runway. We gave them both. The news leaked in a small trade journal. That was fine. Small ripples often lead to the largest waves. Within 2 weeks, the empire had a new hum. Not frantic, focused. People walked a little faster in the halls because they could feel the current. The ones who had only warmed their hands at the campfire were easy to spot. They complained about pace. They asked for more meetings. I let them drift. The ones with fire in their eyes got everything they needed: tools, trust, room on a quiet Sunday. I drove to the old house one last time. I parked on the street and watched the windows. I did not go in. I did not want a scene. I wanted closure. A light in the kitchen turned on. A shadow crossed the room. For a moment, my throat closed. Then I remembered the promise I had made to myself by the ocean. I had said I would never forgive them. I meant it. Forgiveness can be a gift for the giver. It was not needed here. What was needed was a clean cut and a future built on bedrock. I drove away and did not look in the mirror. That night I wrote the speech I would one day give to the people who had carried this company while I hid in plain sight. Not a glossy speech, a simple one, about work, about honor, about how real success is the quiet agreement you make with yourself to keep showing up when your heart has been dragged across gravel. I would tell them that I had been tested and I had failed at love. I would tell them that I had learned. I would tell them that our work would stand for something so strong that even heartbreak could not shake it. Weeks passed. Strength returned. The reveal plan sharpened. We chose a date for the first press notice that would tie the anonymous owner to a face. We lined up projects that would show value before the headlines tried to spin stories. We prepared statements that said almost nothing and told the truth anyway. On the eve of that date, I stood again by the water. The wind blew hard and clean. I thought of the boy on the field, the man at the kitchen table counting bills, the husband who believed his love could be enough, the brother who tried to see the best in everyone. I honored each of them. Then I set them gently behind me. The next morning, I would begin to step into the light that had been waiting for me. Not for applause, not for revenge alone, for alignment. For the life that matched the weight in my chest, I walked back to the house with the decision settled. The old life had ended on a night filled with smoke from birthday candles and the cold sound of a door closing. The new life had begun with the click of a drawer and the quiet hum of a phone coming back to life. Now, the world would see what I had built while everyone thought I was sleeping. And this time I would not hide. I stayed awake through the night, my fingers dancing across the keyboard as if the machine itself had been waiting for me to return. Years of quiet work hidden in shadows, files stored on drives no one knew existed, proofs of betrayal, proofs of greed, and something else, something no one could ever take from me. The empire I had crafted in silence, built piece by piece while everyone laughed at the idea that I was nothing. Just an ordinary man, a man who could be ignored and forgotten, a man who would never rise, and now the world would see the truth. The real truth. By sunrise, I had already decided the order of the reveal. The sequence of humiliation, the calculated steps that would ensure they never forgot this day, the day. Their lies, their treachery, and their greed came to light, and the day they realized the man they called a failure had been the master all along. The world could not look away, and neither did I, watching as the tide of my revelation spread like wildfire. Hashtags exploding across platforms, hashtag Carter exposed, hashtag betrayal revealed, hashtag billionaire revenge, trending on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. The clips of my wife laughing with my brother in secret moments, circulating endlessly, loops of video. Shared, replayed, dissected, every frame analyzed, millions reacting with disbelief. Anger, sympathy, and fascination, each notification a drumbeat of my rising control. Each mention another layer of humiliation stacking against them. I walked through the city as if it were my chessboard. Each street, each building, each cafe, a square where I could place my pieces with precision, feeling the energy of the crowd around me, whispers of my name following me, phones snapping pictures, strangers recognizing the face they had seen dominate their feeds, and I smiled inwardly. Cold, detached, calculating, every step deliberate. Imagining the panic growing in their hearts as they realized no corner of the city, no screen, no friend could hide them from the wave I had unleashed in a sleek downtown office. My wife's colleagues gathered in shock. Her phone buzzing incessantly with messages from friends and coworkers linking to my live stream, tagged with every viral hashtag, the shame already public, the embarrassment visible on her pale face as she tried to delete notifications, block accounts, but it was futile, every attempt at concealment making the exposure more spectacular. Every frantic swipe a new layer of evidence, and I watched the unfolding chaos remotely. Heart cold, mind sharp, strategizing the next move, calculating who would carry her shame further. How long it would take for the first viral backlash to break her later. In a packed restaurant where I had arranged a casual lunch, I saw my brother enter, hesitant, sweat on his brow, hands slightly trembling, forced to meet me in public, his friends watching. The staff noticing the tension, cameras snapping discreetly, his face betraying every ounce of panic he tried to suppress. And I let him stew, letting the silence linger as he struggled to speak. Tried to find words to placate, to bargain, to plead, all failing under the weight of my calm. Precise demeanor, the world still watching, filming, recording, posting. Every word he stammered being shared and dissected in real time. My brother, he said finally, voice quivering. Please, I didn't think it would get this far, please. I'll do anything, anything you ask. Just take it down, please. You don't understand. This could ruin me, our family. Everything. I leaned back, observing, not a muscle twitching, my mind cataloging every movement, every tremble, every flicker of fear across his features, noting which friends looked away in shame, which colleagues whispered judgment, noting the viral reactions already being shared on social media, trending videos uploaded with captions like, Golden Brother exposed, Carter's revenge goes public. And I felt nothing but cold satisfaction, each plea, each desperation feeding. The orchestration I had been building for years meanwhile. My wife had been escorted to the city square by a friend, cameras following her every step, reporters circling like vultures, microphones shoved in her face. Questions shouted, flashes exploding as she raised her hands in futile defense. David, please, you don't understand. I made a mistake. I'll do anything. Anything to make this right, and I watched from the edge, a calm storm, calculating how long it would take before she realized the public would never forgive, that the world had already passed judgment, that every friend, every colleague, every follower now carried her shame like a permanent tattoo, and I imagined her begging, the way she had in private, now multiplied by every set of eyes, every lens, every phone capturing her humiliation for eternity, every gesture amplified, every tear broadcast, every tremble dissected. My thoughts were precise, cold, logical, yet each action carried the weight of emotional satisfaction, the exquisite knowledge that my patience, my silence, My careful concealment had led to this moment, and in my mind I rewound and fast-forwarded simultaneously, imagining every viral clip, every social media thread, every trending post, plotting each next release, each public confrontation, calculating the cascading effect on her reputation, on my brother's pride, on the network of lies they had built, and feeling the fire of betrayal transform into the icy clarity of strategy at a crowded office. My brother was confronted by his colleagues as I had planned, a live recording circulating immediately, a clip going viral of him trembling, begging for forgiveness, stammering apologies, the camera zooming in on his hands shaking, the sweat on his forehead, the embarrassment painted on his face for all to see, friends whispering judgment, others laughing at the spectacle, and I watched, cold, detached, noting the precise effect, knowing the humiliation was far worse than any private confrontation because it was permanent, public, and unstoppable. By mid-afternoon, the reactions reached a fever pitch, #Betrayal revealed topping every trending list, viral clips dissected, memed, shared with commentary, the world talking about them without knowing the half of it, my wife's friends shaking their heads, whispering, some crying, some angry, all sharing, post tagging, every action magnifying their shame, and I remained a calculated observer, recording reactions, noting angles, predicting viral trends, already planning phase 2, phase 3, each more devastating than the last. I orchestrated street confrontations, arranging encounters where they could not escape, forcing the brother to beg in front of family in a busy plaza, every camera capturing the collapse of pride, the world watching as the golden child of the family revealed as a coward, as a liar, as someone who had betrayed the man they called ordinary, the man they underestimated, and in my mind I traced every path, every reaction, plotting follow-ups, viral releases, news interviews, financial revelations, social proof, turning every panic-driven word and tear into a precise weapon at home. My wife fell silent, exhausted, tears dried from endless crying, mascara long gone, her hands covering her face, shaking, while I walked through the living room, observing, noting the smallest detail. The twitch of a lip, the curl of a finger, the subtle panic in her eyes, my mind already several steps ahead, planning the next wave, calculating the next humiliation, every single action taken with cold precision, my emotions transformed into strategy, my betrayal now a weapon sharper than any sword. By evening, the city square, streets, restaurants, offices, social feeds, every location was alive with their failure, their begging, their collapse, every move documented, broadcast, shared endlessly, and I remained detached, cold, calm, analyzing the data in my head, noting which viral clip had the strongest effect, which hashtag drove engagement, which interview caused maximum public shame, strategizing further moves with the meticulousness of a general on the battlefield, knowing that each second increased their fear, their desperation, their regret. In quiet moments, I allowed myself reflection, thinking of every memory of betrayal, every lie, every small insult, every dismissive look, every criticism, every time they had tried to make me feel small, and I let it fuel the cold, calculated precision with which I executed my plan, knowing that revenge was not simply punishment, but artistry, strategy, and dominance, and that by the time they realized the full scope, the man they had tried to destroy would be untouchable, untarnished, and victorious by nightfall. The city lights reflected off the windows, thousands of people discussing, sharing, dissecting, recording, posting, viral reactions exploding, my wife and brother reduced to pleading, desperate figures in the digital and real world, every movement captured, every word broadcast. And I sat in my office, calm, untouchable, a storm of precision and patience, whispering to myself, this is only the beginning, knowing that the final phase, the complete dismantling of their arrogance and betrayal, was yet to come, and that my empire, my legacy, my control was now fully revealed to the world, unstoppable, undeniable, complete. By the time the first streaks of morning light filtered through the blinds, the chaos I had orchestrated had settled into a new order. The world had watched my wife and brother crumble, their begging, Their tears, their public humiliation had been dissected by millions, broadcasted, shared, recorded, dissected again. And yet the most satisfying part of all was not the exposure itself, but the realization that they had finally understood the weight of what they had done. I leaned back in my chair, letting the cool air of my office brush against my face, feeling the calm after the storm. The city below hummed with the chatter of my revelations. Social media feeds still swarmed with hashtag Carter exposed, hashtag betrayal revealed, hashtag golden brother down. My name trending in every country, every major platform buzzing with clips, memes, and live commentary. Each notification that popped onto my phone was another echo of their shame, another affirmation of the precision with which I had dismantled their carefully constructed lives. But now, the real work began. Revenge was not simply seeing them fall. Revenge was ensuring they could never recover. Revenge was justice that was permanent, inescapable, absolute. The divorce papers were the first step. I had prepared them in secret, months in advance, anticipating the moment when I would finally sever the ties that had bound me to a life of betrayal. The legal team I had quietly assembled over the years was ready. Everything was filed in my favor, full custody arrangements where necessary, financial settlements structured to leave them dependent on their own failures, contracts drawn so carefully that no lawyer could dispute them. The papers were delivered quietly, efficiently, each document a silent execution of the plan I had nurtured while the world thought I was oblivious, weak, and ordinary. When my wife received the notice, her hands trembled as she read the first lines. Her eyes widened and a gasp escaped her lips, followed by a low, helpless cry. "David, no, this can't be real." "You can't do this to me. I'll do anything." Her voice trailed off, catching on a sob, her strength failing. Under the weight of inevitability, I did not respond. My presence alone was enough. I had prepared for every argument, every manipulative plea, every attempt at reversal, and I met each one with the calm certainty of a man who had already won. Meanwhile, my brother's calls flooded in. Messages, texts, emails, desperate attempts to negotiate, to beg, to manipulate, all of which I ignored. Each ring that I silenced was a measured blow to his ego. Each ignored plea a reinforcement of the lesson he had failed to learn when he betrayed me. His pride, once as grand as a mountain, now crumbled into dust, visible in every public encounter, in every office where he tried to maintain appearances, in every social setting where friends and colleagues now whispered about the downfall of the so-called golden brother. Public confrontations became unavoidable. I orchestrated subtle encounters where the exposure could continue to hum, where the world would witness the full scope of their disgrace. In a downtown office, a meeting had been called where my brother attempted to argue his position in front of colleagues. I arrived unannounced, standing calm, composed, untouchable, as he faltered before the eyes of everyone present. His explanations faltered, his voice cracked, and each word was twisted into proof of his incompetence and duplicity. Phones lifted to record, colleagues whispered, shocked, appalled. The room vibrating with the echo of public judgment. Outside in the streets, my wife and brother were cornered by the media. The public, their own friends, all seeking answers. All witnesses to the reckoning I had set in motion. Cameras flashed relentlessly as she attempted to explain, to rationalize, to negotiate. But every gesture, every word, every appeal was met with reminders of the betrayal she had committed. I watched from a distance, detached, analyzing each reaction, each flinch, each tremor of panic, noting how the tide of shame and desperation grew with every second, and knowing that every piece of exposure was irreversible. Through it all, my own thoughts remained cold, calculating, untainted by emotion beyond the satisfaction of precision. I had learned long ago that true power came from preparation, from patience, from the ability to convert pain into strategy. Every action I took, every step I orchestrated, was deliberate. There was no room for passion to cloud judgment. Revenge was an art, and I had mastered it in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the depth of my preparation. Weeks passed, and with each passing day the world's fascination only grew. Clips of my orchestrated confrontations went viral. News anchors replayed the moments where my wife begged, where my brother faltered, where colleagues, friends, and family witnessed the collapse of the empire they had built around lies and betrayal. Hashtags trended worldwide, analysis flooded every platform, and I remained unshaken, watching it all unfold like a maestro observing his orchestra, every note, every pause, every crescendo perfectly executed. Then came the final step, the complete severing of ties. My wife and I finalized the divorce, a quiet, methodical process that left nothing for her to claim, nothing to manipulate. Her name was struck from every account, every asset, every association tied to me. It was clean, surgical, a final declaration that the life we had built together was over, and it was done not out of hatred, but out of clarity and principle. My brother received a similar ultimatum, the consequences of his betrayal laid bare. His last attempts at reconciliation were met with polite, clinical rejection. The ties of family had been broken the moment trust was destroyed. There was no room for compromise, no room for forgiveness. My empire, my life, my vision required nothing less than absolute clarity, and I granted it with cold precision. Months later, in a far quieter corner of my world, a new presence emerged, a woman whose love was genuine, unwavering, authentic. She did not seek my wealth, my power, or my fame. She sought me, the man beneath the mask, the man who had endured betrayal, the man who had mastered his pain. Her eyes met mine without calculation, without agenda, and for the first time in years, I felt an honesty that was raw, unguarded, and refreshing. We spent days, weeks, months together, her laughter filling the spaces once occupied by deceit, her touch comforting, her words a balm to wounds I had long carried in silence. In her presence, I could finally allow myself to breathe, to smile without strategy, to rest without vigilance. She did not need to be impressed. She did not need to be won over. And in that simplicity lay the profound beauty of connection I had been denied with my wife. Even as I built a life with her, my empire remained untouchable, growing, expanding, unstoppable. The lessons I had learned, the betrayal I had endured, had forged a resilience, a precision, a cold clarity of purpose that now guided every decision, every investment, every public and private maneuver. My life was no longer constrained by the fragility of misplaced trust. And every victory, every achievement, every moment of joy was heightened by the knowledge that it had been hard-earned, forged through fire and perfected through patience. And as the city lights flickered across the skyline one evening, reflecting off towers and glass, I stood beside her, the woman who loved me for who I truly was, and I allowed myself a small, quiet smile. The weight of the past had been lifted, the lessons of betrayal transformed into strength, and the future stretched before me, vast, bright, and uncheckable. For in the end, the truth remained undeniable. Success was the ultimate revenge, power, the most satisfying vindication, and love found in authenticity the final reward. Those who had betrayed me were reduced to shadows, their cries and pleas echoing only in memory while I moved forward, unstoppable, untouchable, and fully alive. And I whispered, almost to myself, almost a vow, almost a celebration, success is the best revenge.